Hello. Today we're talking about contrast. We're talking about feeling better after feeling really crappy. Can you relate? Have you ever felt pretty crappy and feeling like it was going to last forever, and then all of a sudden you feel better? So what is that? How do you feel better? And like, what's the benefit of feeling bad? So hang tight here. Hang with me here. My name is Rebecca Abraxas. This channel is all about remembering our greatness. In this video, you are going to find something really, really great about feeling bad. All right, so feeling bad sucks, right? Just came out of kind of like 3 weeks of feeling awful mentally, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually. So yeah, it sucked. Can you relate? Let me know. Let me know I'm not the only one. But that kind of feeling bad is actually a good thing. It's called contrast. And still, I know all this, yet I still, when I'm in the muck of it, I feel like it's going to last forever. If you need to hear this today, it's not going to last forever. It is going to shift up. It is going to shift. It's going to change. It's going to change soon. Hang in there. Okay? Contrast is a good thing because it helps us realize, oh, I want something different. So it helps us kind of shoot a rocket of desire up into here and say, I want to expand my reality to something different. And then we have to go and meet it. Now, going and meeting it is how we start deliberately creating. So when you reach a point and you're not feeling good, when you're kind of like, screw this, all of a sudden you start taking out all the tools, right? You start journaling, you start pre-paving, you start getting energy work, you start doing yoga, you start taking cold showers, you start following the moon phases, whatever it is. You start doing something different because feeling bad starts to really get on your nerves. So you start doing something a little different. Things start to shift and you start reaching for what you launched from the contrast that you were feeling. Immediately you have a contrast and your vibrational self, your source self goes, oh, we want this. And so you have to play a little catch-up game. So this is what I have just come out of. And it feels really good. And I feel like I have more awareness. I feel like I have more consciousness from before I was not feeling good, right? So there is going along your merry way, feeling good, and then you go into a phase of feeling bad, and then you come out of it, and guess what? You're not the same person you were before the contrast. You have expanded your consciousness. You've expanded your awareness. That's awesome, isn't it? Ah! Yes, it is an awesome practice. Now, what would it take for us to remember in these really intense, sucky contrast moments? What would it take to remember this? This is not going to last forever. This has a silver lining. I'm going through this as my awakening journey. I'm going to come out of it better, stronger, more vital, and more conscious. And I'm helping the world expand consciousness by going through this hard moment. You know, I guess we just go through it enough times and eventually, maybe by the end of our lives, we'll be like, oh yeah, this too will pass kind of thing. I don't know. But are you going through a hard time? I'm sorry if you are. It's hard. So what happened with my hard time? Well, before Christmas, I was feeling super empowered. I was feeling, let's do this. I booked a trip to Hawaii. Everything was going great. I got on the plane to Hawaii. It was awesome. I got to see my friend, and all of a sudden, some childhood wounds started to be triggered by some of the company I was around. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And I took care of myself. You know, when I started to feel triggered, I took space. I meditated more. I didn't react to it. I did a lot of journaling. I did a lot of alone time. And but then I caught COVID. I caught COVID as I came back from Hawaii. I had to work so hard on looking at this like internal wounding and how it was being triggered out here that I got COVID. And when I came home, I hadn't seen my family in like 9 days. And then I had COVID, so I had to be quarantined for another 9 days. And it was really hard to come home and not be able to kind of just nest and unpack and just see my family and get hugs. Like I had to just be quarantined. And then after that, after COVID, I had long COVID symptoms, which means that I had bronchial constriction and my blood sugar was all off. My brain was inflamed and it was awful. So that was another week of that. I wound up in the emergency room, and then things started to really flare with my oldest teen, and we were just having lots of communication breakdown and fights. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, oh my God, like this is not what I want to be living. So that's when I got to that point I was talking about earlier. Like, yeah, this is getting like too sucky. Like I'm ready to just like, what is happening? And so I kind of grabbed the reins of my life. And that's when I started to reach out to a friend for energy work. I started to pre-pave and kind of visualize every hour of my life and how I wanted it to go. I started to just up the self-care, and things started to shift. And actually, I have to say, it started to shift pretty quickly once I took the reins and was like, yeah, I'm feeling this now. Oh, I feel the possibility and the potential of where I could be. Like, because what happens is sometimes we start kind of spiraling down into the not feeling good, and we start believing all the stories, right? And then our thoughts and belief systems just start imploding on us. That's how it felt. And we don't feel empowered, and we don't feel like we are deliberate creators anymore. And then I'm sitting in this muck and mess of my life, and I'm like, wait a second. I feel really lost right now. I feel like I'm not remembering my greatness. I feel like I'm not even doing the practices anymore. I'm believing the stories. I'm making an identification with the way I feel and my emotion instead of letting my emotion show me where I am, in contrast to where I know I can live. And so that's the thing, guys. Emotions are not for us to feel, see, become, identify with. Emotions are a feeling, they're an energy that says, no, red alert, this is where you are, okay? Feel it, acknowledge it, now do something. Now, like, go do something different. Feel it, acknowledge it. Now, what do you want to do? Because this is where your higher self is. And emotions, it's like an alarm system. And sometimes we get so lost in feeling bad that instead of using it as an alarm system, we use it as our identification system. We start saying, like, I'm sad. I am my childhood wound. Life is hard. My life is hard. And when we go down that and we start imploding on ourselves, it's really hard to reach for our higher self. But that's okay, because when you start to feel crappy enough and you implode on yourself enough, there will be a little part of you that puts the little flag out that says, help us. And your higher self will kind of come in with some intuition and say, psst, psst, hey, remember? You're an infinite being. You're more powerful than this. Do you really want to be on the bottom of the ground here? Or do you really believe this? Remember all this work we did? You don't really believe this, do you? Psst. And all of a sudden that psst turn, you like look around and you're like, what the heck? Yeah. And you start remembering again. You start remembering, and then you start coming out of your shell, coming out of the implosion, spiraling back up, if you will. And you start remembering. You're not your emotion. You're not your story. You're not even your childhood story. You're not even your childhood. So it's okay. You can use all those stories. You can use all those beliefs and all those thoughts. Use them to expand consciousness. But it's super important to know and realize that you are not them. And that at some point, your higher self will whisper some intuition in your ear, and it's your job to hear it. And it's your job to be like, oh my goodness, to have some practices in place that help pick you up and get you going towards your higher self. So start to use your emotions as alarm systems. Feel them, but don't become them. And that's really important advice, I think, because I'm in the throes myself of looking at some childhood wounds. Okay, so parenting has a way of awakening you that way. Parenting has a way of helping you look deeper and deeper into things that might not have been addressed, processed, healed. But in the process of going into some childhood wounding, I've noticed it's really easy to start like identifying and believing that you are, you are the trauma, that you are the wounding story. It's a subtle difference, but the minute I was like, okay, I'm not that, I experienced it, I'm here processing it, looking at it, acknowledging it, and expanding it. So I think one of the reasons I was feeling really crappy is I started to really identify with my childhood wounding. And then I was starting to see more contrast with my sons and having him reflect more of that to me, because that's the story I was holding. So the minute you can release process it, feel it, acknowledge it, see it, but then expand it out. That's not who you are. So the childhood wounding work can be a double-edged sword. You got to heal it. You got to look at it. You got to process it, but you got to move it too, not identify and become it. And so it's really easy to identify with our wounding story. And I really, really encourage you to not identify with it. See it, feel it, acknowledge it, move it. Remember who you really are. You are an infinite being with infinite power. You can be a deliberate creator of your life. You are here to expand consciousness for all the universe. That's what we're doing in these bodies playing. So let's just end with some sound together. So wherever you are, if you're feeling really good and you're on the other side of the contrast, or if you're just heading into contrast, or if you're dead set in the contrast, or if you're just before contrast, wherever you are, this sound will speak to your intuition and just put a little psst reminder in your ear. Beautiful beings, this new year of 2022, I am offering custom sound healings. So it's a fun process. We do a little 30-minute interview to see where you are, where you want to be going, what do you want to shift, and then I take all that information and I create a sound healing for you that I record and that I send to you that you can keep having and keep listening to over and over and over again. So if you would like that tool for expansion, for expanding your consciousness and raising your vibration, please get in touch in one of the links below in the description. I wish you all the best. Remember the greatness of who you are. Namaste.